Good morning. Good morning. Okay, some of you are still awake. All right, you don't have to be shy. You don't have to huddle back there in the back corner. But welcome to today's presentation of Black and Yellow Theater, Voices of the Powder River Basin, from Yellowstone to the Black Hills. We started this program earlier this summer in the hopes that we could have human interactive experiences in the museum in different exhibits. And we have a variety of techniques that we use, from interactive hands-on history experiences like we had this last weekend when we were down below shooting atlatls at pronghorn targets. We've had speakers come in and talk about books they've written, and then we've had some living history performances, which we're fortunate enough to have today. Today is a special program designed to kick off our tribute to Black Cowboys weekend. We have several exhibits on display in this room for the month, starting with our new exhibit at the museum, the Black Cowboys of Campbell County. We have the Wyoming State Museum's Empire, a community of African Americans on the Wyoming Plains. It tells the complete story of Empire, Wyoming. And then we have a pop-up exhibit on loan to us for this week from the Black American West and Heritage Center down in Denver. And we do encourage you all to take a pamphlet here to go online every day between now and October 29th to vote for them to win the Vote Your Main Street Preservation Project, which will help them restore the Dr. Justina Ford House there in 5 Points in Denver, where their museum is housed. Every day you can cast 5 votes for them, so we encourage you to do that. But without further ado, I am pleased to have you here to meet a true pioneer of Campbell County, a man who came from Texas and lived the rest of his life here in Gillette. And we are honored to have him come back to life today, Mr. Bunk Haynes.
Hello there, folks.
Hey, good morning. How's everybody doing this morning? Good. Well, as Stephen said, Bunk Haynes is my name. You know, I was born in 1858 in a little small town called Sequim, Texas. During that time, it was a slavery era, so I was born into slavery. I was raised by white folks, and as you know, in slavery back then, there was very few records of your birth, very few records of your family. So I was fortunate enough to be raised by a wonderful, wonderful white family, and I really, truly appreciate that, because I think what they did for me is they've instilled the certain values in me that made me who I am today. And so as a young kid, you know, you grow up on a farm or either a plantation, whichever the case was, and you know, at that point in time, we as Black folks, we were always identified as boys. You had what was called your houseboy. Your houseboy was the one that pretty much maintained the home, did all the necessary things to keep the home running smoothly, and that was appreciated by, you know, the family that he lived with. And then you have the farm boy. The farm boy was one that pretty much maintained the farm. They were the ones that, you know, kind of, you know, kept the house, kept the farm running, kept the, you know, the crops, made sure that all the crops were, you know, picked at the right time, and made sure that, you know, everything was done in which to maintain that crop, because that crop was where the man made his money, you know, and so they were all important. But then you transition out to the field, and you have what is the herd, the cows, the buffalo, you know, the animals that, you know, they use to kind of, you know, help, you know, build that, you know, population, and, you know, help build that revenue that was necessary. And those individuals were called, I guess you can really say they were called cowboys, but to try to show you how that name came about, you know, the houseboy, they identified us all as boys, okay? And so as boys, you know, when they got to the situation where the cows would roam away from the herd, the master would say, "Hey, boy, cow," or he would reverse it and say, "Cow," and then point to the boy. And so that's how that's how, as an individual, I felt that, led me to believe that I was a cowboy. Okay. And so, to kind of just give you just a little bit of information on how, cowboy, yes, cowboy did get started way back in the early years, but for us blacks and for us people of color, that was an indication that, well, maybe this was our calling to be that cowboy. So, and bear with me because I'm 161 years old today. So it's going to be, I'm having to kind of dig way back into my memory in which to kind of recall, the times that I had as growing up. So roughly about 1881, I was able to get together with a group called the Matthews. They ran the T7 Matthew Ranch, and they were bringing up a herd from Texas. And so I was fortunate enough to be part of that. Now, I'll give you a little story about the Matthews. The Matthews were very strict. They only wanted one of three type of people. And you had to be one of these individuals in which to, be a part of that T. Matthew clan. You had to be either left-handed, your first name had to start with a T, or you had to be from Texas. And so me being from Texas, I was able to kind of come along with them. And so, we came up here and, we settled in the northeastern portion of Wyoming, which is now called Gillette. And to kind of, give you a little bit more information about me as an individual. As an individual working the herd, I was very fortunate enough to, to learn how to do all the things that a cowboy did. I was able to, know how to break horses. I was able to learn how to rope horses. And me and Ashley, an old friend of mine, Walter Jackson, he would bet individuals that I could rope 200 calves consistently by the heels without missing. And believe it or not, Walter made a lot of money because unfortunately I was able to do that. And so, and these are some of the things that I did as a cowboy. I was fortunate enough to, as time went on and as in my later years, I was able to homestead, and I was able to homestead about 680 acres. On those acres, I had my little homestead place, and to kind of give you an idea as to where the location is, I don't know if you're familiar with the Edwards family, but, they currently own my location where I had my homesteaded house. But the property that I homesteaded was from the fishing lake all the way down to Box Settler, where the Holiday Plaza is, all up in that area. From the golf course all the way over to a place where Walmart sits. And that was at one time all my property. Now I would allow the boys of Gillette to come in there and they would hunt and they would fish. And, what was so entertaining to me is that, after they would do this, they would come by and grab a bite to eat, because my house was always open. I tried, and history tells you that my homestead was one of the nicer ones here in town. I'm not trying to brag, but I took pride in having a nice little area where people can come and enjoy themselves. Now, I'm going to tell you my little secret. I had what was called a rabbit pie. Now this rabbit pie was something that individuals came from far away in which to try. Now, I can't tell you my secret, because if I tell you my secret, then it's not my secret anymore. But this rabbit pie consumed of rabbits, and it had some seasoning in it, and had a little bit of this, and had a little bit of that. And, it was something that people would come from far away. These boys loved to hunt and fish on my property, which I did not mind. And I was fortunate enough to, as I was, homesteading, I was able to, also establish a what was called, I call it an outfit, but today they call it a business, but I was able to establish this outfit that allowed me to breed and break horses for a polo club. Now, I don't know if any of you guys are familiar with the polo club up in Sheridan, but I was the exclusive supplier of horses. at that time. So, I feel that, this is a community that embraced me as an individual as I, continued to break away from, the chains of being a slave and working, for someone to one day owning my own, and so, I appreciate that, and it just shows you how, the community of Wyoming, which is now Gillette, Wyoming, how the community was so embracing of one of color, and so still today, I think that still exists, and so, I mean, this is me, this is Bunk Haynes, this is my story, and, and I want to thank you guys, for, taking the time out of your busy schedule and kind of, taking the opportunity to listen to me. And keep in mind, I'm getting old. I'm 181 years old, 161 years old today. So, I just want to thank you guys. And, I'll be around here for any questions or comments or any pictures that you want to take, And yes, sir.
Did you ever get married?
No, I didn't. Never got married. Never got married. I was single for, because you have to understand, back then, there wasn't, to find that beautiful, woman of color, was kind of scarce. And to go outside that was kind of dangerous. Okay, so, I did have a lot of friends. I mean, I was well liked by many. I mean, my house was your house, kind of like it is today, But no, I never did get married,
So about how old were you when you came up with the Matthews?
We came up in 1881. I was roughly in my 20s.
Okay.
I was in my 20s when we came up. Uh-huh. Yes, ma'am. And that was very interesting, the Matthews were a great bunch of people. I worked for a lot of individuals up here. I worked for the Driscolls. I worked for the Hunters. I worked for the 4J Ranch, So I was working with a lot of individuals. But the Matthews were my, that was my go-to family, as you would say. I mean, it was the family that I came up here with, and they kind of, embraced me as an individual, and they kind of helped me be the person that I am, today,
Did you sell your property before you passed?
No, I did not. No, I before I passed, actually, to give you the, I had went back to Minneapolis, and at that point in time, that's where I passed at. But then my body was brought back here because this is where my home was. So I mean, at that time in passing, I think my property was worth about $2,700. I mean, back then it was. Yes, back then it was.
Where are you buried?
I'm buried in Mount Pisgah.
Okay.
Mount Pisgah, and if you ever toured Mount Pisgah, which I'm pretty sure a lot of you have, if you go up along if you go into the cemetery and then you pass that area where the shelter is, and you make that first right and go along where you can look down and see the shelter, you can see that church, and you go up to the top of the hill, and if you take a right, you'd miss me, but if you kept straight, I'm about the fourth or fifth stone in, big gray stone, and all it has is my name, Bunk Haynes. But I am aware of the fact that the Historical Society now is trying to get my my information placed on my grave, and my one of my not siblings or family, but a person that I know very dearly that's on the cemetery board will address that issue on Monday at the board meeting. I'm getting that put on there faster. And his name is J.D. Jones, by the way. Yes, ma'am.
I noticed you were playing with some cards over there. Was that a source of revenue for you also?
Well, that's a good question. That is called, I didn't drink. I was not one to drink. I didn't believe in drinking excessively. a beer here and now, every now and then. But I did love to gamble, you know. And if the game I like to play was Monte, you know. And so if I could get a little, maybe, young lady, can I? Or anyone? Does anyone want to, want me to show you how the game of Monte is played? Monte is a three-card game. Stand right there, young lady. You only need 3 cards. What you do is you flip all the cards over and you allow the person to pick the card. Pick a card, young lady. I'm sorry, speak a little louder. 9? Okay, so she's picked 9 as her card. Now I'm going to turn all these cards over, and I love to play this game, And what I'm going to do is I'm going to shuffle them up. I'm going to move them around just a little bit, and then I'm going to allow her, once I stop, to pick her card. And if she finds that 9, she wins. By God, she won. Okay. Here you go, young lady. You've got a free pamphlet. Okay. Please visit us. Okay. So yeah, that was one of my favorite games to play when I did go out and gamble. One of my favorite pastimes, because I did not carry a gun, I like to whip. I think you guys are all out of danger's way, But this is something that I enjoyed. I didn't carry a gun, but I carried a whip. And you have some individuals that, figure, well, you got a whip and I got a gun, but I can, get my gun out faster and I can shoot you. But what I would say to that individual is that hopefully I can, hit you with this whip, before you can get that gun out. And so, I got pretty good at it, so it's merely just a flip of the wrist, just kind of throw it out there and say, for instance, that young lady had a cigarette in her mouth, I could take that cigarette out of her mouth before, but I wouldn't do that though. But yeah, this is one of my favorite pastimes, that whip. I did not like weapons. Yes, sir.
Did you ever recall any times when you had to actually use that in self-defense?
Well, yes. This was my weapon of choice. Someone comes up to me and, quite naturally, I'm going to be aware of the fact, for an example, we'll use you as an example. You approach me and you're hostile, then I know that, the situation is going to go down, and you're carrying a gun and I'm carrying a whip. So, I've got this in my hand just as you're getting ready to pull your gun out. So hopefully by the time you get your gun out, I would have, either got you by the hand or got you by the neck and just kind of pulled you on in. Or gave you reason to rethink pulling your gun.
So one other question, was the community very large back then? When you...
No. The population was not it wasn't what it is today, by no stretch of the imagination. Because what you had is you had a lot of individuals that moved into this city that, after, there was the population that was here, and then you had the population that came here, and they came up through the wagon trail. They came up with a herd of cattle that, they were either going to take to here or take to Denver, and then ship them, throughout, the continent. So population being large, no, it was not. Everything, where we're at now, everything was south of here. There was nothing north, just a bunch of open, land where people homesteaded, and they bought their families. And so, you're looking at, maybe at that point in time, I'd roughly say probably less than 1,000 people, it was pretty much a working community,
Very neat. Thank you.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Will you continue to tell your story as Bunk Haynes in the future?
Yes, sir. Anytime I'm called upon or anytime that someone reaches out to me, I'll be more than happy to share with them my story. And as the more I tell it, the more information that I will be able to reveal, because it'll all then become, keep in mind, I'm 100 and some odd years old. I think it's 100 and I think I said 61. Yeah. So, information is I'm trying to just, bring all that information back to the forefront, and so yes, I will always continue to tell the story because I think he is indeed one of the most colorful cowboys that were here in Campbell County, and me personally, I was called upon this roughly back in 2011 through the Toastmasters reached out to me, and there was about 8 different characters, I believe it was, that they wanted to have their story told, and the way they told it is through a hayride. Well, not really a hayride, but it was on a horse and buggy through the cemetery, and as they traveled through the cemetery at night, they would stop at the different locations, and at that point in time, the person that was going to be portraying that individual came out of the dark, and started telling their story. And so I was honored when they asked me to do that then, and then, I'm even more honored now to be able to, continue to elaborate on that story and, and just kind of share with individuals as much as I can, as often as I can, because I do think that he was one of indeed the most interesting individuals, because he went from, being owned to owning, and so, and he was one that was loved. If you look at history and you read up about it, although my skin was dark, they said I was the most whitest person that they've ever met, and the most likable person. I mean, I was embraced by many, and that's the culture of Wyoming, even today. They're always opening up their arms for outsiders, and they treat individuals with respect. They look at individuals, such as a man such as you. You look them in the eye, you stand tall, your shoulders are back, and you respect that individual, or you respect that female, because keep in mind, this is a state that where it was first, women were the first to be able to vote, and so, that right there is a welcoming thought. And, we give praise to, the individuals in the community. They're able to embrace each other, and love each other the way they do, Yes, sir.
Chance you have or will be able to present this to schools?
Yes, that would depend upon, the museum. I would love to, be a part of that if it's something that, they elected to do. Quite naturally, it would be, hopefully tonight, this individual that will be singing, tomorrow night rather, the individual that will be performing, Dawn. Hopefully, that will, ignite the schools to kind of look a little further into the history of this. And then at one point in time say, let's just do a whole assembly about it, and which I think it would be great, because not only was there me, there were several other ones, but, the reason why the focus is so much on me is because this is home. This is home to me. Others were Montana, or, Nebraska or surrounding areas. Yes, they had some ties here, but this is home to me. This is home to me, and I think from what, 680 acres, that's a lot. I think I left it to a gentleman named J.D. Jones, but I don't know if he's came and claimed it yet.
Well, using a little magic, I'd like to introduce Mr. J.D. Jones from the Cemetery Board.
Yes.
I started in this program. I have a background in living history and cultural interpretation. My belief for museums is that they're nothing more than a stage or a platform for the members of the community to come in and tell the story of the community from their side. It's also an opportunity from people from the other sides to hear from the other sides in a setting that is open and welcome to all to tell their piece. It's not just one culture, it's not just one people group that make up Campbell County, make up Gillette. It's a variety of cultures. Even to this day, you have people from all over the world coming to Gillette to teach at the high school, to work in the energy fields, to work on ranches and farms around the community. So this was an opportunity to do that. I was asked earlier this week, why are we doing this? Because it's not Black History Month. Well, I don't believe in history months, because every month we should be celebrating history.
That's right.
The reason we did it this weekend is because when I moved to town, I called Dom Flemings and said, hey, I'd like to have you come present your Black Cowboys album. When could we make that happen? They gave me one date, Sunday, October 13th. I said, we'll take it, we'll make it work. And then everything else kind of built out of that. Immediately I went to work trying to research who were the Black Cowboys of Campbell County. And of course, the first one you find is Bunk Haynes. Bunk Haynes and Mexican John were the two first colored cowboys of Campbell County, and they were fixtures here. And through Bunk's story, I was able to find a handful of other gentlemen who also were black cowboys in the early years of Campbell County, and we created an exhibit that tributes some of those gentlemen. Not all of them have a historic record outside of the cemetery saying this was a well-filled burial, this is the man's name, and this is where his grave is at Mount Pisgah. I'm still doing work, and maybe one day we'll be able to uncover the biographies of those men, but so far that hasn't happened yet. I was then informed that there was a gentleman in town who had brought Bunk to life before, and so I called Mr. JD and said, please, will you come and do 2 programs on Saturday the 12th? And he agreed, thankfully. So right now, you've got us both here. If you have any questions of JD or questions of myself of why we're doing this, feel free to ask those. We'll take a couple questions here.
Sure. Oh, come on, I know you got a question.